Noela Ugwu. She is a business and personal development expert with Quantum Business School of Entrepreneurship, and she's joining us from Nigeria. Her presentation is the global impact of girl-child education. Noela is the growth coach and passionate about helping individuals and businesses achieve outstanding results. She has trained and coached business executives across industries globally for over 10 years now and is keen to wake up the giants in people. She has designed and executed programs on business performance organizations from MSME and blue chip companies at levels across the globe. She's an ex-banker with 9 years experience, having worked with two of the top post banks in Nigeria, GT Bank and Stanbic IBTC, a member of Standard Bank. She's a global keynote speaker, a certified image consultant, a certified master practitioner, a business coach, and a business analyst. Her passion for the woman and the girl-child empowerment earned her a place as a speaker at the United Nations 75th anniversary, where she spoke on gender-based violence and gender-based inequality. She recently founded an NGO that is focused on mentorship, education, and empowerment for young girls in and out of school, semi-literate, and illiterate women who become significant contributors to the development of the environment. She's passionate about raising young role models for society and hosts a global personal growth panel session, which features teens and preteens. It had an audience in 2022, children from over 7 countries. She has written for Protocol Magazine of the Netherlands, a magazine for executives, diplomats, and anyone in cross-cultural operations or business. Her focus was on cultural intelligence. She's a member of the Unique Speaker Bureau, a UK-registered body of the global speakers, and a faculty member of Quantum Business School of Entrepreneurship in Nigeria. Please welcome Noela Ugwu.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. I would like to apologize up front. I am croaking because I came down with this allergy and I'm getting better, thank God. So I'm going to try as much as possible to sound audible. Thank you so much, ICPD, for an amazing job you've been doing and for inviting me to this platform to share on the topic, the global impact of girl-child education with regards to achieving the SDG goals. Girl-child education is very, very crucial to the development of the entire world. And when we talk about girl-child education, we're not just talking about reading and writing. We're talking about equipping the girl child with the tools that she needs to be able to compete favorably with the male counterpart in the job environment. Skills like life skills and hard skills, because it's been established that when a girl child is properly trained, when she's educated, she doesn't just take care of herself, but she also takes care of her family and even extended family members. So in my language, we say that when you train a girl, you've trained a whole community, because it's assumed that the girl child will eventually become a mother, and a mother is known to be that person who nurtures, who takes care, that person who brings people together. And being a mother is not just about being a mother to your immediate family. It's about being a mother to anybody who needs your help. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is the content, and I'm going to keep it really brief within 15 minutes because our time is fast spent. So I'm going to be talking about the global landscape, the dividends of girl child education, those ideologies that impede girl child education, and then the role that diplomacy can play in enhancing girl child education. Next slide, please. So girl child education is not something they have to beg for. It is their fundamental human rights. Just like the boy child is entitled to education, the girl child is also entitled to not just education, but safe education, affordable education, and quality education as well. Next slide. I'm sure that this might be mind-boggling to some of us. You can imagine that countries lose as much as $15 to $30 trillion when girl child education is limited, meaning that the girl child actually just acquires primary education or just acquires secondary education. Many girl children, especially in developing countries, hardly make it to tertiary institution, due to a number of factors, which we're going to see in subsequent slides. Let's go. Next slide, please. So here is the global landscape. Let's go. So according to UNICEF, in their report of 2020, 1 in 3 adolescent girls from the poor households have never been to school. 1 out of 3 has never been to school. Imagine that. Here we are. Majority of us on this platform are women, at least as I can see, we are women. And we are here discussing global issues. We are talking about diplomacy, we're talking about diplomacy in sports, diplomacy in education, diplomacy, how internet, and all of that. You can imagine how brilliantly all the women here have spoken. Now imagine that 1 out of 3 adolescent girls from poorest households has never been to school. And many of them will eventually never be to school because of a number of factors. Early marriage, cultural bias, religious bias, a whole lot of things, poverty. Let's go. Now, Africa, which is where I come from, hosts 8 out of the 10 countries with the lowest literacy rates. And among those with the lowest literacy rates are girls. And girls actually form the majority of those with the lowest literacy rates. I mean, little wonder you can see that countries where the literacy rate for girls is low are actually struggling economically, as opposed to other countries where girl child literacy rate is high, because these girls are not able to contribute to the development of their immediate family, first of all. They are not able to contribute to the growth of their communities. They are not even able to contribute to the growth of their economy. Let's go. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some facts. Some of these facts are from UNESCO. Now, girls are 2.5 times more likely to be out of school than boys. Poverty, violence. Where I come from in Nigeria, I'm sure some of you have heard of Boko Haram and their menace in the northern part of Nigeria. Chibok girls that have been adopted for years, and we don't even know the whereabouts of some of them. So these girls suffer violence. These girls suffer poverty. These girls suffer gender bias. These girls suffer all sorts of discrimination, trauma. And so they are even scared to go to school because the schools are no longer safe for these girls. And so you see that even when they drop out and everything settles, it is difficult for them to return to school because some of them are probably married off, some of them have become pregnant and all of that. And then girl child labor rates in Latin America is 63%. In East Asia is 59%. Now, approximately 60 million girls are assaulted on the way to or at school. What I just mentioned as I started here on this slide. So you see, after this assault, these girls are emotionally and psychologically traumatized. They are scared. They fear for their lives. They don't want to go to school. And apart from just the girls, their parents are also afraid that their girls might just not come back home. And all these things are the impediments that we see with girl child education now. More than 41,000 girls under the age of 18 marry every year. And the moment these girls get married, the next thing is pregnancy, homemaking, and their growth is stunted. Now, girls and women can earn up to 20% more if only they add one extra year to their education. So you can imagine what that can do to the GDP of an entire economy. Because, I mean, the world's population is significantly made up of women, the female gender. So imagine that the world is deprived of this value that the girls can bring to the table. I mean, it's such an unfortunate situation, but that's where we find ourselves, especially in Africa. Next slide, please. Okay, so according to global data, in 2021, these are the countries with the highest girls' education rate, with Taiwan leading the list, and then Latvia being at the bottom of the top 10. Okay, so you can imagine what's happening in these countries where girl child education has been prioritized. You can imagine what's happening to their economy, what's happening to their social life, what's happening to their growth, what's happening to, girls are emancipated, they can contribute to issues that concern them. They can participate in policy formulation, they can participate in diplomacy, they can participate because they are the women. They will eventually evolve to become women. And when they become policymakers, because they are the ones who have experienced these things firsthand, they understand the pain of the woman. And it will be easier and more effective for them to contribute in formulating policies that will effectively address the issues with girl child education. Next slide, please. And then when the girl child is well educated, she is well informed about nutrition and healthcare. So she's able to take care of herself, take care of her babies, her children, and take care of her family. Child spacing is usually missing when girls are married off so quickly at an early age. So you see child brides, within 4 years of getting married, this girl would have had like 4 children back to back every year. And we see them come down with all sorts of diseases. And then there's low infant mortality rate. Why? Because they are well informed. They understand the importance of immunization. They understand the importance of hygiene. Early child marriage is avoided when a girl is well educated, because then she understands that she has a lot to do in her life. She has a vision for her life. She understands that she has to build a career in whatever sector she chooses. And so early child marriage is really avoided when girls are well educated, and then they participate in the labor market. They contribute to the GDP of their countries. Because I mean, see, these days we see a lot of women, in the executive body of organizations, in the boardroom. We see a lot of women take decisions for multinational companies, and then they earn higher income. And where does the income go? The income comes back straight home. They invest at home. They invest in their family. They invest in their children. They invest in their community. And then they contribute to community growth. And then there's this cycle of positivity, because they know what has happened to them, what education has done for them, how they have benefited from education. So they also encourage other young girls to acquire education as a tool for emancipation, as a tool for liberation, as a tool to advancing in their lives and achieving their dreams. I recently formed an NGO where we mentor girls in secondary school on the importance of education in the rural communities, as a matter of fact, because these are girls who are so vulnerable. It's so easy for them to quit education after secondary school because they don't. Rural communities in Africa, many families do not value education. Yes, this is 21st century. It is still happening. Next slide, please. And here are some of the first women to head their countries, from Edith of France to Angela Merkel of Germany. Now, if these women were not educated, would they have ever been able to compete with their male counterpart? Would they have been found worthy to even, hold the mantle of leadership? An entire country? It's education. Education is power. Education is the tool. Education is what equips the woman to go to the field, to compete favorably, and then to contribute effectively. It's not just enough for the woman to say, I'm discriminated upon, against rather, but when a woman is well equipped, you see that her competency speaks for her. And even if you didn't want to give her the position, because you can see that this person is undeniably competent, without reproach, you wouldn't have a choice than to give her the position that she deserves. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And so here are some of the impediments to girl child education violence. Like I had mentioned, over 60 million girls are molested on their way to school or in school. And then the gender bias. A girl is supposed to just look good and get herself ready to be married to a man. It is what we see in certain climes as at today. Then girl child marriage, I had mentioned, conflicts. Once conflicts break out, girls are the most targeted because, there's rape, all sorts of violence are meted on these girls. And so they are so traumatized, they never get to go back to school. And then you see some of them even get carted away by the held hostage. And then from being hostages, they become brides. It is happening in my own country. Poverty is another factor. Then COVID-19. Yes, COVID-19 has come, it has waned, but COVID-19 has set the world back by about 3 years. And some of the girls who were out of school due to COVID have not come back yet. Some of them got pregnant because of the lockdown. Some of them got married during the lockdown and they started making babies and they are not coming back to school. Next slide, please. So what can diplomacy, how can diplomacy help? Next slide, please. So diplomacy can help in reducing or even eliminating the discriminatory gender norms that impede the education of the girl child, and then encourage national education plan that actually is girl child sensitive. And then teachers training should also be emphasize the ways to ensure that it is inclusive. And then digital education, like it was that talked about digital education. Digital education can also enhance girl child education and the provision of safe education, because it is one thing to provide education, it is another thing to provide safe education for the girl child. And then social and psychological support network to take care of the trauma that some of these girls have had to endure due to conflicts, due to violence meted on them, either away to school or at school or in war-torn countries. So if diplomacy can actually come in with all these factors, I believe that girl child education will be enhanced, especially in those places where there's so much struggle for the girl child to be educated. Again, I would also say that the girl child education doesn't just end here. The girl child education actually touches every facet of the UN Sustainable Development Goal, be it in eliminating poverty, be it in clean energy, clean water, just name it. The girl child education is important. And girls feature in all the 17 goals. There's no aspect of the SDG that the girl child cannot feature if and only if she is well equipped. And did some research And then I came across the fact that the New Zealand Prime Minister at the time of the lockdown was actually acclaimed for her proactive measures to ensure that she locked down her country, locked her borders, and she was able to curb the effects of COVID. And New Zealand was the very first country to open after the COVID. Now, what does this tell us? Educating the girl child is not either or. It is not something to be debated. It is not something to be, it's not, it shouldn't be an afterthought. It is something that should be on the front corner. It is an emergency. We need to educate the girl child, because it's not because we want the girl child to compete with the male folk. No, it's so that they can collaborate. Indira Gandhi, I'm going to paraphrase now, she said that when women work with men, they actually work better. Okay, so the two genders work better when they work together. And so with this, I'm going to be ending my session. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to take questions. Next slide for connection. Okay, so my details are on the next slide. Please, next slide. Okay. Oh, okay. I have more slides to go, but my time is up. So next slide, please. Okay, so as my parting short, I will say that these girls are ready to be equipped. They are ready to learn, be it in the countries where girl child education is even banned, or in the countries where child education is seen as an obstacle. Girls are dogged, girls are determined. Girls rise through all those inhibitions, all those barriers, and they still acquire education. And when they do, and you can trust any responsibility to them, you see how they are able to discharge their duties with a lot of diligence. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's connect on my social media handles. I hope I did not exceed my time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Noela, for that very timely presentation, as this is Women's Month that we have gone into. And over the next couple of weeks, there will be a lot of presentations on women, and especially March 8th. So that was a very timely presentation for us, and showing why education is so important for girls, especially. Josephine, the questions for you again, and we do wish you much better.
Thank you very much, Tanisha. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. I don't have any questions for Noela.
Okay. Probably before the questions come in, maybe one or two, I just want to say, Noela, thank you so much. Noela has been doing a lot of work across Nigeria and Africa in terms of, women and girls, and that kind of awareness in terms of how that works with SDGs. And I just think this is a fabulous, fantastic job she's done in terms of, the importance of women, in the whole sphere of the SDGs. And I'll say thank you so much. And the only question probably that could come in is, in terms of the work environment, what's your perspective when it comes to the boardroom? Do you see women really growing in that percentage, or because especially within the energy sector, you find few women who are really up there? So from your statistics, do you think this is the reality for women to climb up on the boardroom?
Okay, I would say that things are actually improving. Things are changing. A case in point is Nigeria, where more and more women have become the MD of banks, something we never saw happen like 10 years ago. Okay. In the energy sector, we can see more and more women occupy boardroom positions, and more women not just occupying boardroom positions, but more and more women becoming CEOs of those organizations. So I would say that things are improving, things are changing. As a matter of fact, people are beginning to wonder if within the next 20 years, it wouldn't be the other way around. Maybe the women might just be more in number in the boardroom. So I must say that women are doing very well. And all these things are based on competency, not about favoritism or anybody just trying to give you something because you're a woman. No, these women actually earned their spaces.
All right, thank you. Over to you.
There's one question. If I may, the question chat from Free Spain, and his question is the boy have a different?
Could you say that to Josephine?
So from Sharif Hussain, is the boy having a different name? So I guess the question also is, do you have any addition or comment on how
Is the boy having it differently? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Oh, having it differently in terms of the boardroom composition?
Probably generally on in terms of.
Oh, okay. You know, the boys have always been they've always been the favored when it comes to education, you know, because let me take Africa, where I come from. The girl child is expected to just look good, behave well, and get married. You know, a girl's level of success is measured by how quickly she gets married, especially after school. You know, so your parents actually celebrate your marriage more than they celebrate the fact that you were just made the CEO of an organization. Yes, you know, so guys, the male child has always been favored when it comes to education. So they've always been allowed to go as far as they want to go. But you know, it will actually baffle you to know that in this age and time, in some areas in Nigeria and Africa, if a girl child wants to get a master's degree, the next question you get is, are you married? Aren't you planning to get married? Or, you know, do you want to scare the men? You have a first degree, you don't want to get a second degree and a PhD, and you're not married yet. But for the men folk, it's okay.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, Josephine.
I would like to say that you're welcome. And I love what you said about when you train a girl child, you train the community. And I believe there is also an old African saying that it takes a community to raise a child. And I think that, yes, it is. I love that saying that you made. You know, that statement that you made. And
thank you.
When you see, there is a constant question about women being on board and whether there should be a quota or not. And what's your take on that?
Well, quota, I would say yes, and I would say not so yes, if there's any expression like that, because I would rather a woman gets on board because she qualifies, not because of quota systems, because quota systems have been seen to not favor organizations. So if it has to be 50-50 and you don't qualify, but because we have to have 10 women on board, and then we get people who don't qualify to sit on the board, why don't you just make yourself indispensable? You know, I gave a talk to a youth body, and I told them that, you know, if they don't give you a chair at the table, you bring your own chair. your own share is not your commitment to fast. No, your seat you're bringing to the table is your competency. You know, be so competent that you can't be ignored. Be so competent that even your enemies will have to root for you.